Chapter 19. I took a deep breath. All I wanted to do was reach across the table and throttle him. Although I don't think my hands would have fit around his huge neck. I forced myself to breathe and unclench my hands. I couldn't handle another brawl with a soul eater anytime soon. Mr. Lewis, he wasn't. But he could still do a hell of a lot more damage to me than I could do to him with my cracked ribs, regrowing ear, and missing fingers. And I had to be sure. Who did you look into as a replacement for Jeremiah Anderson? I asked.
Nobody specific. I just followed him around trying to get back in, and when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I looked at the people he was spending time with who had potential. I figured that way, if he relapsed, I could be there to jump right back in, he said. There was this one girl he kept following around the campus for weeks. I figured he was stalking her, maybe looking for another hookup, so I started following her too. She's a pretty girl, brown hair, bright blue eyes. She was out of his league, out of mine too. But if I could have gotten in with her, I could have had my career made.
One of the bright ones? I asked.
Yeah, all bright and blue fire, he said. How do you know about that?
Was her name Amanda? I asked.
Yeah? Why?
He was looking at me cockeyed now. Tell me about that, I said, draining my glass. He was following her?
Yeah, he was being all weird, figuring out where she was during different times of the day, where she lived, where her classes was, where he hung out. She used to come in here a lot, now that I think about it.
Yeah, she did come in here a lot, I said. Do you remember where she used to sit?
Yeah, in this booth, he said, and his eyes got big. With you, didn't she? Oh, shit. I didn't know she was friends with the judge. I didn't even know who you were. I didn't know anything about that. If I had known, I wouldn't have ever come near her. Please, man, I didn't know.
His voice was shaking now. Jeremiah never came in here, even though Amanda did, I said. Why?
I don't know. He just sort of hung around outside when she was here. He said. I figured it was 'cause he didn't want to fall off the wagon and start drinking again.
When did you start showing up at her house? I asked, keeping my voice calm. The calmness seemed to scare him more than if I had been yelling.
It was, after I realized I couldn't get back into Jeremiah. I can't remember when, he said. Look, I'm real sorry, Judge.
Sorry for what? I asked. Sorry that she's dead? Are you the one that drove her to that, Amnon?
She's dead?
He asked. His perfectly tan face went white. He wasn't lying. He really didn't know. Yeah, she's dead, I said, searching his face for any reaction. Suicide, apparently. They found her body on Christmas, shoved a bunch of pills down her throat, and OD'd. You know anything about that, Amnon? I had him good and scared now. Saul was right. For a soul eater, he was not the tough guy I expected.
No, I had nothing to do with that. I swear it. I was demoted months before that. Been working at Q ever since. Nina had me a real short leash. Besides, I was never able to get into that girl's head. I tried, but I couldn't. I swear to whatever you want me to, I didn't do that.
He was practically crying. Why did you stop bothering her? I asked. And why did you decide to give up on getting in?
I gave up because Nina wanted me to focus on getting hold of Jeremiah again. She sent me with backup when she found out I lost him, sent the big guns to force a way back in. She said that he was our property and I had to get him back. that he was the only way to fix the problem, and if I didn't repossess him, that she was going to make me work the club circuit for the next century. She knows how much I hate it. It's boring. I hate being bored.
He was whining a bit now. It sounded odd coming from such a deep voice and a huge body. Forcing your way back in didn't work, did it? I asked.
No. Place was walled up tight, not even a crack to get in, and I had even the entire 7 more wicked than the first cleanup crew. No dice, he said. The place wasn't empty, swept, and garnished, as the phrase goes. It was occupied, and it wasn't accepting visitors. Nina was furious, especially since we couldn't identify who was there. She filed paperwork saying it was a self-performed exorcism. She's terrified of a coup from within her own staff or from one of the other departments.
So when you were demoted, you gave up on Amanda?
Yeah. Nina doesn't trust me with anything more than checking IDs at her club. She wouldn't hand over a prize like that girl to me. I don't even think she's trying to use soul eaters anymore. She says it's a primitive method of control and the results aren't worth the effort, especially since lust and envy are so in vogue right now.
What were your methods with Amanda? I asked, thinking back to her entries in the journal.
She had this medication thing she was taking to make her more susceptible to suggestion and hallucination. I tried using those as a way in. It was working. I planted the original seeds in a dream state and then hung around watching from the shadows. Drugs made it easier for her to see me. At one point, she was weaning herself off her meds, and I had a harder time getting her to see me while she was awake. It took a lot of energy. She fought hard. And then she started hanging out with Jeremiah more, getting real religious. She had some kind of connection to the guys in white. Because one time, when I was gathering her energy, I was thrown out of the room by a bright light. I figured it was her guardian angel, and I got the hell out of there.
I handed him my business card and got up to leave. Let me know if you think of anything else.
Look, Judge, I'm real sorry about her. Please don't tell Nina what I told you. She would send me straight back to the pit. I hate being a bouncer, but it's better than that. Please.
Shut the fuck up, Amnon, I said. I will call you if I have any more questions. I left the bar and decided to walk back home to help me think. The cold made my injuries ache even more, but it kept me awake and alert so I could think clearly even in the whiskey cloud my head was in. Jeremiah was not the man I had thought him to be. At least the guy Amnon had possession of wasn't the man I knew. If man was even the correct term at this point. I toyed with the thought of leaking his sordid history to his followers and seeing how long his ministry lasted after that, but then I realized that he would just twist it around to show how great his deliverance had been. In the end, it would only make him look better. Had Jaziel actually committed a crime in taking possession of Jeremiah? He had been invited in, technically. Had any crime even been committed? Was Amanda just a broken soul who had gotten involved in something beyond her comprehension and decided to end the pain herself? Free will is tricky. The answer had to lie in her journals. It was the early morning hours when I got back to the church, still a few hours before the sun rose. The days were starting to lengthen now, but it was still winter. I fell asleep on the couch with a bottle of whiskey on the coffee table, an empty glass in my hand, and Kitty asleep on my lap. I woke to a stiff back and hungry meowing. I needed to invest in a real bed if this sleeping shit was going to become a habit. I decided to get back into the journals again over breakfast and coffee. The sun had risen, and for the first time in a long time, the sky was clear. I sat up in the chapel area on the floor near the altar where I could spread everything out in front of me. I needed to make a timeline of everything I knew had happened from the beginning. A picture was starting to emerge, but there were details missing. While I might not be able to prove a capital offense of infringement of free will, which would let me send Jaziel to the place beyond the edge of the universe, I might have enough to send him to the pit. But first, I had to finish the journal. I invited Ray again tonight, and I talked with him about homosexuality. He says he's not. Maybe I'm just thinking evil again, or maybe he's lying. I don't know. He did say he would come if it was important to me. I'm so happy about that. I hope he will see what a great group of people it is. Jeremiah is starting to think we should open it up to more people. He says my visions have inspired him and told him it's time for us to move out of the city to look for the chosen. I told him we should start with Ray. And he agreed after some hesitation. He says it would be good for him to come because it will either deliver him or expose his darkness to me so I can see it for myself and then leave him forever. A bit melodramatic, but that's Jeremiah. I'm just happy that Ray will have a chance to share this with me because I miss him so much. I miss having someone around who actually gets me. Because while I see that the fellowship with the believers is a good thing, I also see the need for different kinds of people within our fellowship. We need other people who are intellectuals if we really want to move forward, not just addicts and victims. But as Jeremiah says, God chooses the little things to confound the wise. And it is the meek who inherit the earth. He scoffs at intellectualism and education, and he says it's a path to pride. All we need is our faith and humility to know everything we need to know about God and life. I still want something a little bit more. There's so much out there. There's so much to understand. And it can't be wrong to want to know about more than just the Bible. Jeremiah thinks that's a sin. That Adam and Eve's thirst for knowledge is what led them to the first sin of mankind. He says I should stop questioning everything so much and just rely on the Spirit that works in him and in me. Eve questioned God's command, and that questioning is a slippery slope. He says that I've been involved long enough to be beyond childish things and beyond my ego, that all of that is part of the old man nature that we are supposed to reckon as dead to us, especially since I have received revelation from the Spirit. He says that the reason I had so much revelation is because I'm called to be something more. He says it is sad that the angel has had more to overcome in me because of my knowledge, intelligence, and pride. He says I just need to believe. I brought Ray to fellowship. It was wonderful. I think he enjoyed it. He hung around and drank coffee with everyone for a long time after the fellowship was over. Jeremiah left early that night because he said he didn't feel well. I was disappointed because I wanted Ray to be able to hang out with him and get to know him. It was such a great night. Jeremiah called me this morning, said it was urgent that I meet with him. He was distraught and he asked me to come to his place. He's rooming with another one of the guys from the fellowship across campus. I walked over as soon as I got off the phone with him. When I got there, he looked horrible. Dark circles under his eyes, and his hair had a white streak in it that wasn't there the day before. He was sitting on the couch when I walked in. He asked me to sit down, and then he called everyone else to come in. There were 3 other believers there from the fellowship. They all sat there and stared at me. Jeremiah kept his head bowed, and he took a deep breath, and then he stood up. He was pacing around the room like a crazy man. Here's the conversation as it happened, as I remember it. Jeremiah, Amanda, we called you here because of what happened last night. I'm very concerned for your safety. Me, what happened last night? Jeremiah, at the fellowship, you brought your friend Ray. You know how I left ill? It was more than just a virus. It was a spiritual sickness. I could not be in the same room with him. It pained me physically. The others here also sensed something. Emily, I felt very uncomfortable in my soul, Amanda. It was as if everything was covered in fog when he was in the room, like my vision was clouded. Joe. I felt drained, and all I could think about was how good it would feel to be high again. I've not felt that temptation since Jeremiah delivered me from my addiction last year. Adam. He kept looking at me in a way that made me uncomfortable, in a sexual way. I had visions of him with huge black wings and talons covered in blood. Jeremiah. After I came home, I started to feel very tense and uncomfortable in my spirit, Amanda. So I asked the angel what the feelings meant. He showed me that your friend was trying to keep you from the truth, that he would try and take you from this ministry. He showed me a flock of crows in the trees, that he sends the crows and he watches with their eyes, and that he was watching all of us. He holds no allegiance to good, but serves himself only. The angel then showed me a vision of you walking across campus with your shadow darkening and growing behind you into the shadow demon I had seen near you. I think that Ray is the source of all your darkness and inability to commit to the truth. I was stunned. I couldn't even make myself formulate a response. The things he said were unreal and strange. I sat there and thought silently for a while without responding. And then it got darker in the room, like a dark cloud went over the sun outside. The light bulbs actually dimmed. Outside I could hear a crow cawing, and it just got louder and louder, and I looked out the window. The crow was sitting on the patio railing outside, cawing and cawing. I was terrified, and when I looked around the room, so was everyone else. Jeremiah stood up and yelled, "Demon from hell, leave this woman. She's no longer yours, but God's." And then he looked at me, and he told me I had to renounce the evil or it would never leave me. I nodded yes, but he made me stand up and say it myself. The crow just kept cawing and cawing outside. "I renounce you, demon. I renounce my sins. I am God's. Leave now in the name of Jesus." I opened my eyes, and the crow wasn't there, and the light had returned. Jeremiah had collapsed on the floor, and the others gathered around him. He wasn't moving. It seemed like he laid there on the floor for an eternity before he sat up with the help of the two guys. I fell to my knees, crying and speaking in tongues. He crawled to me and put his arm around my shoulders. "I've wrestled with demons all night for your soul, my dearest sister. Please do not cry. I have defeated the darkness. All you have to do is come into the light and give yourself over to it. You will be safe in the heart of God," he said. I will remember those words until the day I die. At that moment, I decided to do whatever he said to do. He told me later that night that the white streak in his hair had shown up after he woke up that morning. He had been praying on his knees the whole night while the demons had tried to overcome his spirit. He said the angel had come and helped him, moving into his body and defeating the demons around him with the light of God. His eyes, although shaded underneath with exhaustion, had a light behind them, the light like the one I see in my dreams. We got Jeremiah back on the couch, propped up on pillows, and he asked for a blanket. He was shaking all over from exhaustion. Before he fell asleep, he told me that he thought it would be best if I moved from my apartment and in with Emily, where I would be better protected, for whenever two believers are together, Christ is in their midst. I agreed. I went home and packed my things. I left a note for my roommate telling her I'd moved out. It was early enough in the month that she should be able to find someone else quickly. So now I'm here at Emily's apartment where we have fellowship. I'm sleeping on the couch for now. We're going to have a garage sale and sell all my furniture this weekend so I can pay her rent. My books and other things are in the car until I can find a place to store them. The apartment's really small, but I know this is the best thing for me. I hope I never cross paths with Ray again, and if I do, that I have the strength to tell him to leave me alone. After today, I believe it all. I believe that demons exist, that Ray is the source of my depression and oppression, that the angel who visits me in my dreams is a real and pure light, a light that can burn away the darkness in my soul, and that the same light lives in Jeremiah. No more doubts, no more questions, no more shadows, only the light.